Scott Frost, relieved of his head coaching duties, fired today here in Lincoln, Nebraska, as the Huskers moving in a different direction. Scott Frost, 16-31, this in his 5th season with the Huskers. Sean, your reaction that it came today?
Well, I think initially we were a little surprised because of that October 1st metric of what the buyout would do. It would go from $15 million to $7.5 million. But as Trev Albert said, this is Nebraska. We have the finances in place to make this happen. And the bottom line is 16-31. The bottom line is 642 yards last night. That was a record for Memorial Stadium. So there are so many things that have happened early on this season that raised red flags. The onside kick decision, blowing 2 11-point leads in Ireland with 12+ thousand fans that traveled out there to watch your team play. I mean, think about that scene at the pep rally, Andy, and how bad people want this, and to have games blown on things like that. And then even the North Dakota game, they won, but there were a lot of red flags in that win. And last night was the ultimate nail in the coffin, I think, when you give up a stadium record yards allowed on the night you were honoring the scoring explosion. It's tough, and Trev never wanted this day to come, as we know, but it's reality.
Yeah.
We're here.
Yeah, Trev's called it a tough day and sad and unfortunate, a day that he hoped he'd never have to live through, but that's where we are at. You mentioned it wasn't just one thing. It wasn't just 642 yards, 45 points against Georgia Southern. It wasn't just the onside kick. It wasn't just poor coverage on a punt last year at Michigan State. It was a culmination of things, I'm guessing, right?
Yeah, I just think the details, the overall day-to-day structure of the program, there just wasn't a fluidity to things. And I think when you go back to the beginning of it, you know, just the way maybe putting your staff together, was it a great Big Ten first staff? Probably not when you go back and look at it today.
Hindsight.
Hindsight. And we have the advantage of that right
Absolutely.
now to say that. But then the roster building, when you start to look at the early years of building these teams, they took a few chances. And they brought some guys in, at least on paper, that looked like they could be good players. It didn't work out. And I felt like Nebraska found themselves in a roster hole, which led them to going after 15 transfer portal players, and it did help this offense this year. It did help some of the special teams areas like punter, but defense, man, that's the shocker of shockers. I didn't see the defense coming this unraveled after it being pretty good the last 2 seasons.
Yeah, they did lose a couple key players, but you're right. The losing a couple of
492 yards a game.
Yeah, this is pretty amazing, the turnaround or the downturn the Black Shirts have fallen to here 3 games into the 2022 season. But we are just 3 games into the 2022 season. There's still 9 games left, which I think is one of the big reasons why Trev Albert said, hey, if we're going to do this, let's do this now. Give these kids a chance to compete. There's still 9 games remaining with Mickey Joseph in charge.
Yeah, I think they need a new voice, a new leadership voice, and you know the brand of Nebraska. You know, I don't think having Frost come out again after a night like Saturday would have been good. I mean, you think about the sellout streak. You think about these great fans. I mean, that stadium was full for Georgia Southern last night.
It was electric.
And, you know, when you're Trev, you're looking at it like, man, we can't lose this. You know, if we screw this up, you know, and let it go long, it almost reminds me of when Steve Peterson was fired. Oklahoma State came in, blew out Nebraska. It was Mike Gundy early in his career there, and the next day they fired Steve Peterson a day later, and then they hired Tom Osborne, and the program at that moment really felt fractured. I felt like if they just kept going forward with the same thing, you were kind of at a crossroads. You were potentially going to lose a lot of people, especially knowing with Oklahoma coming in here, and if they hung one on Frost Saturday, then things could get really ugly. So this reminds me of kind of that moment in 2007 when they fired Steve Peterson, just telling the fans, like, yeah, change is coming, and we're going to get this thing right.
Yeah, 0-13 Scott Frost was against AP top 25 teams. Obviously, Oklahoma's ranked coming to town Saturday. And it's one of those culture over money. Like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter about that buyout. We're going to make this change right now, even if it costs us $7.5 million. This is important. What do you look at moving forward, and what do you expect this Saturday and the weeks to come with Mickey Joseph in charge?
Yeah, so Frost will get $15 million plus this year's salary, I believe. So he's owed close to 20, 19 and change, I believe, is the number that he'll get paid out after today's news. But with Mickey Joseph, I think you'll have a looser guy up front. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he made some different suggestions and changes on personnel and things they do. You know, I don't know about defense, what kind of voice he'll have, but Eric Schnatter's in a tough spot too. I mean, his defense has never been lower. They're giving up this is interesting. I looked this up this morning. Nebraska's giving up 492 on defense. They're averaging 492 on offense.
Yeah.
So a Nebraska football game right now is almost 1,000 yards
track meet
of total offense.
Yeah, well, we will see what happens moving forward. Mickey Joseph is a candidate, according to Trev Alberts, though he did say that there will be a national search for the next head football coach here at the University of Nebraska. But for now, for Sean Callahan, I'm Andy Kendi, as Scott Frost fired at Nebraska.
Thanks, Andy.
Thanks, no problem.